Love has no boundaries, just like a cheater has no boundaries. A cheater can love a person and cheat on him. Why? No one knows and will never know because it is impossible to get into the head of a cheater and find out the true reason. My wife betrayed me, but thanks to her betrayal, I found a real treasure.
June Clausen and I, Brian Walters, got married right after college following a 3-year romance. Although we graduated the same year, I was 3 years older than June because my parents had me repeat kindergarten, and I spent 2 years in the Peace Corps before starting college. Both of our families were happy with our choice of partner, but no one was more thrilled than my mother-in-law, Cheryl. Cheryl was especially pleased because not only did she seem to like me, but our romance, engagement, wedding preparations, and wedding allowed her to live vicariously through June, as she never had those experiences herself. Cheryl became pregnant as a teenager and struggled as a single mom, largely because her zealously religious parents essentially disowned her. After barely getting by for a few years, she married a much older man at 21 for financial security to support June. Cheryl never experienced romance, a fulfilling engagement, or more than a modest wedding since her husband, Sam Clausen, had been married before and wanted something simple. Sam is a decent man who provided well for Cheryl and June, but he is about as exciting as dishwater and as romantic as a doorknob. I have always liked Cheryl. Since she's only 11 years older than me, I see her more as a young aunt than a typical mother-in-law. She's just as attractive as her daughter, though she's 3 inches shorter than June, with green eyes instead of blue, and not quite as voluptuous. She usually wears a striking smile and is very kind. Despite her beauty, she is shy and dresses conservatively, perhaps because her parents constantly called her a girl of easy virtue. After June and I had been married for 4 years, Sam died of a heart attack. It wasn't really unexpected due to his lifestyle, but Cheryl took it hard. I managed all the matters regarding Sam's estate for Cheryl, provided a shoulder to cry on, and involved her in our activities more than June did. This, along with her charity work, kept her occupied. However, she wanted no help or discussion when it came to dating. There were dozens of guys I knew, some much younger, who would have loved to date her, but she had zero interest. Shortly after celebrating my 6-year wedding anniversary, I realized I had become a cliché, a clueless husband being cheated on by a deceptive wife. Though I was unaware, I wasn't indecisive. Once I confirmed June's infidelity, I moved out of our apartment into an extended-stay motel and immediately separated our finances. I do believe June genuinely loved me, but she lost her way and didn't see her short-term affair with someone she claimed to have no emotional connection with as serious. She accused me of overreacting. I know June confided in Cheryl. I never called her mom or anything like that, only Cheryl, and asked her to intervene on her behalf. I know this because 3 nights after I moved out, Cheryl visited me at the extended-stay motel. When she knocked on the door, I was surprised to see her, but given how kind she had always been to me and how much I liked her, I couldn't deny her entry. We sat down next to each other on the couch in my motel room, and she held my hand. "I'm so sorry, Brian. I think you know that I didn't raise June to behave like this." "I know, Cheryl," I replied, giving her hand a squeeze. "I've always seen you as a moral person who has overcome life's challenges, and June's actions don't reflect on you." "How are you holding up?" she asked, a small tear forming in her eye. "I'm managing. It was a shock, but I'm not one to hesitate, so I took action and moved out. It'll hurt for a while, but I'll get through it." "Is there any chance you could forgive June and reconcile?" "I don't see how, especially since she thinks I'm overreacting. She doesn't realize how deeply she hurt me," I replied, a tear now in my eye. We talked for another hour, covering not just June, but various other topics. When she stood to leave, she hugged me longer than what was appropriate, considering she was still my mother-in-law. After breaking the hug, she looked into my eyes and said seriously, "If you divorce June, I hope it doesn't mean you're divorcing me too." Cheryl, you'll always have a special place in my heart. After Cheryl left, I felt a bit better. While advocating for her daughter, she also acknowledged my feelings, didn't pressure me, and acted more like a friend than a mother-in-law. That sense of comfort lasted until I fell asleep that night. I woke up sweating from a very, very inappropriate dream. A week after I moved out of our apartment and informed the landlord that I was no longer responsible for rent, we were on a month-to-month lease with no contractual obligations, I filed for divorce due to irreconcilable differences. June was very upset, and I couldn't understand why. She had known me for 9 years, and I had never misrepresented myself to her in any way. June and her attorney tried various tactics, including suggesting counseling, so the first 3 months were not smooth. During that time, I was still in shock, but I held firm to my principles. It would have been harder for me except that 2 of my single male friends took it upon themselves to cheer me up, and Cheryl called me every week. She not only checked on how I was doing, but also shared uplifting stories from her fulfilling charity work. We also had lunch once a month, and she was always upbeat during those meetings. After the papers had been on file for about 3 months, we had a preliminary hearing before a magistrate at around 1 p.m. on a Monday. June argued for counseling, but my attorney successfully rebutted her case by presenting photos of June having lunch with George, the co-worker she had an affair with, at least twice since the divorce papers were filed. Despite her emotional and tearful statements that she had had no contact with him since I left, her inability to distance herself from him led to the magistrate, at the request of my lawyer, rejecting her request for a court-ordered consultation. Everyone at the hearing understood that this was likely the final blow to the marriage, which would probably be finalized in 3 months. On Tuesday at work, Cheryl called. It was unusual for her to contact me at work, but I was always happy to hear from her. After exchanging initial pleasantries, she got straight to the point. Brian, you probably heard from June that she called me upset after yesterday's hearing, thinking the divorce will be finalized in a few months. Do you agree? Yes, Cheryl, unfortunately that's the case. It's hard, but I have to move forward. My lawyer believes we can handle all the financial matters properly, so the final decree should be out in about 3 months. I figured you might be feeling down, so let me take you out to dinner on Friday. Would it be awkward to dine with your soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law? I could wear a disguise if it helps. That's funny, I chuckled. No, it wouldn't be awkward at all, and no need for a disguise. I just don't know if I'd be great company. I'll make sure you have good food and lift your spirits. I know cooking isn't your thing. What time should I pick you up on Friday? Considering my lack of culinary skills, that's an understatement, I chuckled. I'll come to you or meet you at the restaurant. Absolutely not. It's my treat. No arguments. I'll pick you up at 7 p.m. All right, 7 it is. Let me give you the address of my new place. I had another troubling dream on Tuesday night. If they continue, I might have to see a therapist. To my utter surprise, no shock, when Cheryl knocked on my apartment door at 7:02 p.m. on Friday night, she wasn't dressed in her usual conservative attire. Instead of her usual style, Cheryl had on a fashionable low-cut blouse, a short skirt, 3-inch heels that matched, light makeup, which was rare for her, highlighting her striking emerald green eyes, and a new hairstyle that enhanced her already pretty face. At 43, she didn't look a day over 30. Cheryl looked at me nervously. Wow, you look amazing, I managed to say once I regained my composure. Thanks, she replied, visibly relieved. The restaurant we're going to is pretty upscale, so I wanted to dress the part. Is that a new outfit? Yeah, I decided it was time for a change. Bought a few similar ones this week. No more frumpy clothes for me. Cheryl drove us to the restaurant, which turned out to have a dance floor as well. I couldn't help noticing that her skirt rode up a bit as she drove, revealing part of her thigh, a sight I'd never seen before. I scolded myself for even noticing, thinking, looks shapely. Dinner was pleasant, and Cheryl's upbeat mood was contagious, momentarily easing the weight of my recent divorce. It was unusual to see Cheryl drink as much alcohol as she did that night. Normally, she stuck to one glass of wine. This time, she insisted on sharing a bottle, though I hardly drank and left most of it to her. After dinner, she lured me onto the dance floor. The only times we had danced together before were at June and my wedding reception, and a few nights after Sam passed away, when June and I brought her along, during which she turned down many dance offers from other men. She used to be a fairly conservative dancer back then. Now she was vibrant and full of energy. After 6 or 7 dances, we took a break. She went to the restroom and I found us a table. When she returned, I asked, "Where did you learn to dance like that?" I consider myself a decent dancer, for a guy, but she clearly outshined me. "I've been taking lessons once a week for nearly the past year," she grinned. "Was I any good?" "You were one of the best dancers out there. You definitely caught a lot of guys' attention," I chuckled. "Oh, stop it," she blushed. Right on cue, a guy approached us and asked if I would mind if he danced with my date. After a brief moment of surprise, I realized how Cheryl's appearance might lead others to mistake her for my date. Once I regained my composure, I jokingly remarked, "It's up to my mother-in-law." The man looked extremely puzzled. Cheryl playfully nudged me and said to him with a smile, "He's just teasing. It's only our second date, and I wouldn't want to abandon him, especially since some attractive young woman might snatch him up. Thank you for the invitation, but I'll have to decline. Although if he ends things with me, I'm sure I'll see you here again." She laughed, placing her hand on mine. The man smiled, kissed Cheryl's hand, and left. "You're quite mischievous," I teased her. "Gotcha," she replied, just as a waiter arrived with what looked like a Bloody Mary for her and a club soda for me. "We didn't order," I began, but she interrupted. "I did when I was coming back from the bathroom. Now drink up, and let's get back on the dance floor." I had never seen her drink hard liquor before, but she quickly finished the Bloody Mary while I sipped my club soda, and then we returned to dancing. After dancing through another 5 or 6 songs, Cheryl leaned over and whispered to me, "I think I've hit my limit, for both alcohol and dancing. Could you drive me home? I really shouldn't drive. I might be tipsy, I've never been like this before, but I definitely shouldn't be behind the wheel." I retrieved the car from the valet, while Cheryl made another trip to the bathroom. Then I drove towards her home, a small, elegant house in a beautiful upscale suburb close to town. Sam had left her quite well off when he passed away. It was about an 8-mile drive from my apartment, and I figured I could easily grab a taxi or Uber to get back home. Cheryl was talkative during the drive, repeating several times, probably due to the alcohol, that she hoped I had enjoyed myself and had managed to forget about her daughter's troubles for a while. When we arrived at her house, she struggled with the keys to the garage, which I opened with the remote from her visor, and then to the kitchen door. I gently took the keys from her, unlocked the door, and helped her inside. Once inside, she closed the garage door and bolted it noisily. Then she reached into her purse and handed me something. "I took this off in the bathroom as a souvenir for you," she chuckled. It was her underwear. I'm sure I blushed, but it was nothing compared to what followed. As I stood there, stunned, she quickly threw off her outer clothes before I could object. I must have blushed. Although I always suspected that there was something gorgeous hidden under her old-fashioned clothes, it wasn't just gorgeous. It was the kind that any woman would envy, which could be written about. Cheryl approached me, covering my shoulders, neck, and cheeks with quick kisses, all the while muttering words that I couldn't catch or fully understand. Some phrases that stood out were, "I'm pretty sure you haven't had intimacy in months, and you need someone to take all the energy out of you. I'm just as set up for this as you are. I've been dissatisfied for decades, and I need you to do something about it. Imagine that I'm just a girl you picked up at a bar, not your mother-in-law." And more. While she was talking, my mind was going back to 2 disturbing dreams that I had recently had. In these dreams, I was with Cheryl. As I carried her into the bedroom, I remember thinking that I might regret it in the morning, but at least tonight I would definitely have a good time. After we finished, I was exhausted physically and emotionally, and couldn't bring myself to leave, despite her unexpected confession of feelings. "Do you like it?" I put it off for a while. When she snuggled up to me and I fell into a deep sleep, the questions could wait. Last night I had a few sensual dreams, which is unusual because I usually don't remember them. In those dreams, I was with her. It is noteworthy that my last dream became a reality. In the morning, I felt something downstairs and realized that it wasn't a dream when I opened my eyes and saw Cheryl. We repeated what happened last night. When we were done, she turned on her back, pulled me to her, and kissed me. I reciprocated. After about 5 minutes, we lay down side by side. "Thank you for the most incredible night and morning of my life," Cheryl said, staring at me with her captivating green eyes. Is this some kind of strange world where a beautiful woman gives me 2 amazing experiences and then thanks me? I laughed. "I really am. Am I considered beautiful?" she asked nervously. "Of course," I grinned. We had a comforting conversation in bed. Comforting, because I have not yet fully come to terms with the situation with my mother-in-law, knowing that it will inevitably hang on me like the sword of Damocles. In conclusion, she smiled and offered, "Let's take a shower together." And then she kissed me briefly. "It sounds great," I replied, starting to get up, but before I could move, she snuggled up to me with tears in her eyes and said, "I'm sorry for telling you that I loved you." Despite the strength of my feelings, I was close to her, and then listened to her declaration of love, followed by an apology. We enjoyed a shower together. Cheryl was dressed only in a bathrobe and was cooking breakfast, humming cheerfully to herself. We had a pleasant conversation over breakfast, although I tried my best to keep my composure because she looked so charming and pleased. In fact, apart from my wedding to June, I don't remember ever seeing her as happy as she was then. After breakfast, I asked her to get dressed while I washed the dishes. She changed into denim shorts and another cute blouse combined with casual ballet flats. Again, I couldn't help but admire how young she looked. She drove me to my apartment, and upon arrival hesitantly asked, "Could you show me your apartment? I've never been there." "Of course," I replied. When I gave her a tour, she seemed a little confused, although it was hard to tell. When we got to my bedroom, it didn't take long, considering the size of my apartment. She took a deep breath and put her hands on me. "Brian, could you please be intimate with me in your bed?" she asked timidly. I did as she asked. After we parted ways, we lay beside each other with smiles on our faces. "I've never felt so thoroughly taken before," she giggled. "Did you enjoy it?" "I certainly did. Though I'm not sure I could handle it regularly. I feel completely spent, like my spine has turned to jelly," she chuckled. I rubbed her back, and then she returned the favor. We must have been in bed for an hour when she asked, "Am I disrupting your plans for the day?" I replied. "I suppose my plans have changed after last night. Let's go see a movie tonight." Her smile lit up like a Christmas tree. "How about you come over for dinner instead, and we can watch a pay-per-view movie on my big screen TV," she suggested. "Sounds like a plan," I laughed. "When should I come over?" "Let's say 5:30. You can help me chop some vegetables. I make a mean stir-fry," she said with a grin. As Cheryl drove away from my apartment, I paused to contemplate my actions. "What the hell are you doing, you idiot?" I silently chastised myself. "She's your damn mother-in-law. How messed up is that? And imagine the impact it could have on her relationship with her daughter if June ever finds out. What's more, she might already have feelings for you. Do you really want to hurt her? She's the most amazing woman you've ever known." The weight of that realization made me bury my face in my hands, muttering, "Oh crap, and you even dream about her." After a 30-minute struggle with my thoughts, I finally decided to postpone making a decision. I'll just go with the flow this weekend and make a decision later. The conflicting thoughts in my mind finally calmed down. The delay in making a decision led to a fantastic weekend. On Saturday evening, we enjoyed cooking dinner together. She shared her culinary experience. We managed to watch half of the movie before we made love on the couch in her office. Later, we did it again in her bed that Saturday night. On Sunday morning, we went to her favorite health club for a late workout. After lunch, we went hiking in the nearby wilderness. We did it at every convenient opportunity. When I woke up on Monday morning, I felt the calmest I had ever been in my life. However, that tranquility quickly disappeared after breakfast, when Cheryl asked if we could talk before I left for work. I had stayed over at her house on Saturday night. "Brian, can you please hear me out before responding or asking questions?" she asked timidly. "This is really difficult for me, and I need to say what I've planned without interruptions." "Sure," I replied with a smile, gently squeezing her hands. After a deep sigh, she launched into a monologue that lasted 15 minutes without pause, her intensity palpable as she spoke clearly and without stumbling over her words. Her opening statement was, "I've loved you since the first time I met you, and you're the only man I've ever loved." She then went on to explain that despite her feelings, she understood the impossibility of a long-term relationship with me due to our age difference, the impact on her relationship with June, her inability to give me the children I desired, and her belief that my feelings for her could never match hers. She concluded, "But I'll take whatever I can get from you. I'll always be here for you." I was stunned. As per her request, I remained silent throughout her speech. When she finished, she simply said, "You can head off to work now. Sorry for dumping all of this on you." I kissed her passionately, then gazed into her mesmerizing eyes and replied, "I need some time to process everything. Please understand if I need a couple of weeks before I see you again. This weekend has left my mind in a whirlwind." She smiled, gave me a quick kiss on the lips, helped me up, and playfully nudged me out the door. I wasn't exaggerating when I said that my brain wasn't right. Over the next 2 weeks, when my mind wasn't fully occupied with work or any other activity, I thought about Cheryl, June, intimacy, and anxiety. It didn't help that almost every night I dreamed that I was not only close to Cheryl, traveling with her to exotic places, cuddling up to her and having a dozen children with her in one disturbing dream. Until I saw Cheryl, I called her every day, just to chat for 5 to 10 minutes. She never pressed me or was serious during our phone conversations, except that she casually mentioned that the last time she saw her daughter, June asked if she was dating anyone because, "You seem so happy like I've never seen you." I saw it, Mom. Cheryl said she was just objecting. 2 weeks later, I invited Cheryl to dinner on Saturday night, and she happily agreed. Although I didn't plan this initially, I was just evaluating our compatibility not only on a physical level. I ended up spending the night with her. I realized that I was starting to fall in love with her. However, due to our 11-year age difference and the fact that she was still my mother-in-law, I found myself unable to act decisively as usual. Our relationship managed to survive even after my divorce from June was finalized. Cheryl took June on a week-long cruise right after the divorce, as June was upset. Upon her return, Cheryl mentioned that the cruise had helped June a lot, and that June's hostility towards me for rejecting her had decreased significantly, and Cheryl felt that June had realized her own role in this situation. "Did she ask about your potential romantic interest?" I asked. Cheryl paused for a long time before answering. "Yes." "What did she ask and what did you answer her?" There was another long pause before Cheryl answered. "I told her that I was happy, not sure about the long-term future, that she might not like this guy, and that I had no plans to introduce him to her anytime soon." My inability to make decisions might have dragged on for months, or even years, if not for a major event. I had realized I loved Cheryl, and we spent at least 3 nights a week together, talking daily on the phone. Even though I was married to June for over 5 years, I had to admit that my relationship with Cheryl was much more fulfilling. When we first started dating, Cheryl, initially inexperienced in bed, has since become expressive, loving, adventurous, and as energetic as one could hope for. The pivotal moment came one Friday afternoon when Cheryl called my office in tears. We had plans to attend a play that evening, followed by our usual intimate time together. After wrapping up what I needed to do at work, I rushed to her house and arrived shortly after 3 p.m. When Cheryl opened the door, it was evident she had been crying. She immediately rushed into my embrace, and I held her as she wept on my shoulder for a few minutes before guiding her to a couch in the living room. "Okay, tell me what's going on," I said gently, taking her hands in mine. "I swear I didn't plan this," she sobbed, her sentences fragmented. "I didn't know it was possible. Please don't hate me. You can just walk away." I was utterly bewildered. After finally calming her down, I held her hands firmly, looked into her eyes, and said, "Stop. Tell me what's bothering you. I have no idea what you're talking about." She sniffled, took a deep breath, and confessed, "I'm 7 weeks pregnant." This revelation startled me. Cheryl had confided in me multiple times about her struggles with infertility. She had tried with Sam, without success, and after delivering June many years ago, a doctor had informed her that for reasons she couldn't recall, conceiving again might not be possible. When I was initially shocked, I remained silent for a while, my eyes likely widening. Cheryl interpreted this as my being upset and about to abandon her. She started crying uncontrollably, so intensely that I feared for her health. Suddenly, clarity struck me. I realized I loved her more than anyone before, wanted a child with her, and her age didn't matter. It was time to decide, and the choice was clear. I gently held her face, wiping away her tears. "Stop crying, Cheryl," I said repeatedly, until she finally calmed down. When she did, I asked, "Will you marry me and make me the happiest man in the world?" It took a couple more tries before she understood and smiled, saying yes. As her tears dried, we embraced. I professed my love, she expressed her happiness, and then we heard the front door open and a voice call out, "Mom, are you here?" We both turned in surprise to see June entering the living room. She was as shocked as we were. June spoke first, addressing me. "What are you doing here, Brian?" I was speechless. Then, unexpectedly, Cheryl blurted out words she probably didn't mean to say at that moment. "I'm 7 weeks pregnant with Brian's baby, and we're getting married." June initially smiled, thinking my revelation was a joke. However, as she witnessed the intensity in my eyes and observed Cheryl and me in an intimate embrace, her smile vanished and her eyes welled up with tears. Reacting swiftly, I caught her before she collapsed to the floor. Carefully, I moved June to the couch recently vacated by Cheryl, who quickly fetched smelling salts and a cold compress. Before attending to June, Cheryl turned to me and suggested I leave before June regained consciousness. With a smile, she then proposed we go ring shopping for engagement rings the following day. "Absolutely," I responded, giving her a passionate kiss. "I'll pass the play tickets to a friend. Just let me know when to pick you up tomorrow." After another kiss, I departed. I gave away my tickets to a friend and his wife, who were delighted to receive them, and even babysat their 2 young children to practice. Ha, ha. Despite our plans, Cheryl called around noon on Saturday to inform me that June had stayed overnight, and they needed the weekend to sort things out. I agreed without protest, expressing my love and assuring Cheryl we would go ring shopping together soon. Cheryl ended the call with playful anticipation about our next meeting in bed, hoping it would be on Monday before hanging up. Since I wasn't present, I can't recount all of Cheryl and June's conversation. However, what I do know is that Cheryl cared deeply for June, almost like a mother loves her adult child. despite her mistake involving George. Cheryl and June had been a team for many years before I came into their lives. Cheryl assured me she had been completely honest with June about her long-standing feelings for me, and that there was never any romantic involvement until after she knew my marriage with June had ended. Cheryl also acknowledged the awkwardness my relationship with her might cause June, but emphasized how much she valued June's presence in her life. I must commend June. While understandably saddened by the situation for herself, she was happy for her mother, knowing Cheryl had never experienced true love before. June was also pleased to potentially gain a new sibling. Although June and I were unlikely to become close friends in the future, I assured her I harbored no animosity towards her and would always treat her with respect. I made it clear that my actions were never intended to hurt her. I simply couldn't control falling in love with her mother. Cheryl left me devastated after spending a weekend with June, and a week later I moved in with Cheryl. Our only issue, if you could call it that, was Cheryl's heightened libido due to her pregnancy. I need to catch up on 20 years of unsatisfied intimacy, she would say, and who was I to disagree? We continued passionately until she was 8 months and 1 week pregnant, after which we had to pause until 2 months after our daughter Alicia was born. During our break, Cheryl teased, "Maybe June will take care of your needs for you." I nearly panicked until she laughed and reassured me, cuddling her heavily pregnant body against mine. "No one else will ever have you. I would give my life for you." Cheryl and I married simply 2 months before Alicia's birth, with June as the maid of honor, showing her utmost respect. While I had forgiven June completely, my attitude toward George, her co-worker with whom she had an affair, was different. I monitored him electronically and occasionally employed a private investigator. Upon discovering he was engaged, I sent his fiancée a detailed report of his affair with June, which led to her breaking off the engagement within a week. Shortly afterward, George relocated to another city. After Alicia was born, we decided that we wanted her to have a brother or sister. However, we didn't think it would be safe or desirable for Cheryl to have another pregnancy, especially so soon. Given Sam's legacy, we hired a surrogate mother. When Alicia was 15 months old, the surrogate mother gave birth to our second and last child, a little boy, whom we named Aaron. As I write this, my children are 5 and 6 years old. My love for Cheryl has only grown stronger. I never imagined that a relationship could be so satisfying, and our intimacy could remain so good. And one more thing. June has remarried to a man we both like, and she's expecting a baby girl next month. For a while, I thought about what kind of relationship her daughter would have with my children. Eventually, I stopped trying to define it. All I know is that Cheryl, who seems to have boundless love, will cherish it just as deeply.